Your Excellency, Lord Mayor, Professor, thank you very much for having us to have this interview with yourself. And it has been just over 2 weeks since the Lord Mayor's show. It was a very magnificent show. And we had over 130 floats information. Can I ask, how's your life and work at Mansion House so far?
Well, this is day 21, Tim. So, one, thanks for coming in. It's always nice to see you, Bojiao, and I'm really thrilled. It's been perfect. I wouldn't change a single thing of the past 21 days. It's been like winning the lottery. It's enormous fun. I have a number of business goals, but my one goal was to meet interesting people, and that has happened in spades. I've probably met some 7,500 people in the last 3 weeks. I've had 122 engagements, and I've given over 45 formal speeches, so it's been very busy and very fun.
That's lovely to hear that you had a lovely time at Mansion House so far. And recently, I watched one of your public speech at Gresham College, and you were talking about the Connect to Prosper, which is very closely related to your mayoral subject, for instance, including the World Coffee House, and also about Culture Mile. So can you tell us what exactly are they, and how would you like to achieve those?
Oh, wonderful. Well, the theme, here in the City of London, we have 615,000 workers and only about 8,000 residents. We are probably the most intense commuting spot on the planet. And those 615,000 people are very productive, about 5 times more productive than the average in this country. So it's an intensely important spot on Earth. And the theme that I've chosen is Connect to Prosper, and I want to celebrate the many knowledge miles that go through our square mile, which I call the world's coffee house. Now, for your viewers, the square mile is actually just over 2 square kilometers, and the theme of this is that we're very famous for finance, but we're equally famous for science, for technology, for engineering, for accountancy, for law, many, many subject areas. And Britons are not smarter than other people, or certainly not dumber, but one of the things I think your average person here in the City of London is much better connected, and we should be using those connections to help people around the planet. So I think at 3 levels. First level is the business level of making those connections. The second level is sharing wider than business. It's not about money and connections. It's also about ideas, new ways of thinking, etc., that we get through interaction with other people. And then the Gresham lecture that I gave tried to give an intellectual underpinning to that by actually exploring networks and how networks work and why networks are important throughout all of life, whether it's our brain cells or ecosystems or finance and trade. So that was the kind of area that we're in, and I'm hoping to, and I've got a whole series of networking infrastructure, which I can talk about in a minute, that underpins that.
Lovely to hear that. It sounds a very grand project to connect the world, not just about London or UK or Europe. So with a very short span, but actually it's not a very long time for a term, 1 year as Lord Mayor. So what sort of measures do you think you would take to guarantee the delivery or to achieve your objectives?
Well, you're right. The post of Lord Mayor is a very short one. In fact, I counted down. I said 21 days, and that clearly leaves me with 344 to go. So I'm trying to get every minute out. However, the truth is that this started a long time ago. As you come in the run-up to Lord Mayor, I took all of last year off to prepare for it. And there's a commitment that every Lord Mayor makes that they will stay with the city, typically for another 5 or 6 years. So it's not that I leave, it's just that this is my opportunity to put things together. The 5 major projects that I have on mental health, on space debris, on ethical AI, on moving the life sciences sector forward, and also on smart economy networks. These are 5 major projects. All of them began before I took office. So this year I'm celebrating them. And I have beneath that 3 infrastructure projects, a webinar series of 100 webinars celebrating what we're doing here intellectually, in the city and with our connected partners. Also a series of 25 what we call coffee colloquies, speed networking sessions where we're going to pick up the world's problems and talk about them. So that'll be the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and another 7 or 8 topics such as quantum, space, philanthropy. So it's quite a rich program, but it's very achievable. And then beneath that, in turn, we have a web app called Veracity. So all of this is moving forward. All of this was put in train before I took office, and I intend to stay around to see all of this through and hopefully convince my successors to keep many of these projects going as they come to fruition. In terms of measurement, it's very tough. Connecting people to, and you know this because of your work, connecting people all the time between Shaanxi province, Xi'an, your work in the chamber. You connect people and you can't always dictate where it goes, but we are trying to put some metrics on it. And there's a small little project going with Oxford University to measure what the impact of all of this is using network theory as well.
Thank you very much for that. And during one of your videos online I watched, particularly the one that you had with Tim, the chairman of the Gresham College, the interesting question he asked you about is that what sort of global travel or international travel you have to make. Probably you're going to have to spend at least 100 days out of the whole year to travel abroad. And my question to you is that, do you have any plans to visit China during your term year? And what cities you're planning to visit? And also, what are the people you'd like to meet? And what are the subjects and projects you are going to bring with you and to have a discussion with them?
Well, the City of London has long treasured its connections with China. I personally went to China for the first time 40 years ago. And as you know, I've been there numerous times in a personal and a business capacity, buying and selling mines, working on payment systems, working with many cities throughout China. The corporation has equally been going to China, frankly, for a couple of hundred years. So we are very, very committed to China. It's become a bit traditional now that every Lord Mayor makes at least 2 one-week trips to China. So that's a heck of a commitment when it's a big world out there. But China, of course, is one of our biggest trading partners and only going to grow larger. It's the second largest economy in the world and probably poised to become the largest at some point in the future. And of course, we need to work with China on some of the big global issues, most particularly climate change, I would point out. So those are all big things, and China is very important to us. In terms of detailed plans, the team are already planning one trip for either late March or April, working obviously with the various embassies and business associations. One trip would typically also come in September, October. So those will be 2 separate weeks. We'll probably hit an arc of cities. Without question, we'll be stopping in Beijing because of the regulatory aspects of finance. But I myself have long maintained that it's important to get out of Beijing and really get around. So cities that are certainly under consideration include Chengdu, Nanjing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen. So you can see that we're thinking about it. Now, I know you've got a question for me. What am I doing about Xi'an? And so a couple of things I might point out. The first thing I'd really like to point out is the very first business event that I had when I took office. The very first business event was a Chinese event where we spoke about the economy of China, and we were delighted that a very senior official, Professor Fan Gong, who's chairman of the China Development Institute, came here into the Mansion House and spoke for over an hour. It was wonderful in terms of answering questions candidly and honestly, and so that was a big push. We'll also be hosting a Chinese New Year here and going out to various Chinese New Years around London, and so there's a lot more to this than just my trips. But yes, Xi'an is definitely on the list that we're considering, and I should say thanks yet again. When I became sheriff in 2019, the city of Xi'an and the province of Shaanxi very kindly sent me a terracotta warrior, which we treasure and which is held in the Old Bailey. And I hope if I get a chance to come back to Xi'an, I would like to reciprocate with a small gift of my own, which you very kindly helped me with.
Thank you for that. You answered my question, next question actually, but I still like to ask the question because you're very familiar, quite a few Chinese cities, including Beijing and Shenzhen, as you mentioned, Xi'an. So from your personal experience and also your expectations for the future, what is really your view on Xi'an? I'd like to know a little bit more.
Well, Xi'an is, I think, an underappreciated city in the West. I mean, firstly, with a population exceeding 14 million just in the city alone, it's a very, very important metropolis. It's also the traditional start of the Silk Road and one of the ancient capitals of China. So I do spend quite a bit of time explaining to people that, in my opinion, it's very up there in that either top or second tier, depending on how you want to cut it. It's clearly not Beijing or Shanghai, but after that, I think China is a very rich country with many aspects. The second, and probably the most important thing, is that it has excellent cuisine. And I think this is very important to emphasize. A lovely blend of a bit of spice, and I happen to like Sichuan quite a bit, with a slightly more northern cuisine. It's a wonderful, rich cuisine with echoes of the Orient and the Silk Road and lamb. So by all means, that's important too, I think, for any visitor. But getting on to more serious issues, one, the educational system has improved markedly over the years. That provides a workforce that's important. You've got some traditional areas like Tongchuan with its pottery, but you've got much more modern things like aerospace and manufacturing. So I think it's an interesting cluster of a city which combines quite a few elements that should be of interest for trade and connecting for prosperity. I know that you also have ambitions to increase the amount of financial center work that you do, and I can't see why, given that there's solid underlying trade, a great trade nexus connections, and a good workforce, that you shouldn't be also rising in the financial center ranks as well. But you're definitely up there as a smart city, you're definitely up there as a potential financial city, and I think there is a tremendous amount of potential the more that you make these connections.
Thank you. Very interestingly, you mentioned about reciprocal gifts of the Terracotta Army, the Mike, the Old Bailey, and also the dragon, financial dragon in Chinese, Jinronglong, going to be presented in Xi'an. And so, as you know, that except the hometown, as the hometown of the Terracotta Warriors and Emperor Qin's Terracotta Warriors and horses, that Xi'an is also the starting point of the ancient Silk Road. I think that was one of the major reasons that you made your shareful visit in 2019 to Xi'an City. And this year, closing to the end of 2023, it marks the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative. So can I ask you to elaborate a little bit that's your work, how's that going to be associated with the Belt and Road Initiative? Thinking about UK, is actually the first Western country joined the AIIB. And also we had a lot of Belt and Road collaboration as well. So how would you plan, and how's that going to give you any possible aspiration or inspiration to your future work when you go and visit Xi'an and other Silk Road cities?
Yes, well, I think it's fair to say that we in the West 10 years ago had a little bit of trouble understanding the Belt Road, Idai Ilu.
Yeah.
Not least because to us a road isn't the sea, and the road was the sea bit and the belt was the land bit.
Yes.
But we finally got our heads around it, and we saw the depth of the vision, which is really trying to link up the infrastructure and the trade connections for China. So that's a very good thing. As you know, there's been a bit of controversy about the Belt Road Initiative, principally in two areas. Some of the projects got off to a rocky environmental start, but I think that China has convinced people it's trying to improve its game there. And I think the second bit was a little bit of question about the debt funding of it. Again, a lot of that's been resolved. So I look at the Belt Road as a great way to connect with China. And so as you look, particularly what's great about Xi'an and Shaanxi is the ability to look west. It's so easy in the coastal cities. You look to the sea and your way, but you represent, in my opinion, that great bridge to effectively through Asia. So, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, that whole road there is, I think, one of the great potential areas. And these regions are improving their game. They're improving the rule of law. I met with the Kyrgyzstan Prime Minister just last week, and He's really convinced that he can make something happen there. And there's a huge amount of potential in that entire Central Asia region. And I think Xi'an, in addition to what it's already got at home, is the gateway to much of that.
Yeah, that's indeed. Actually, Xi'an recently, President Xi just held a Central Asia summit in Xi'an City. I think it's definitely something that UK can take part in. And I would like to just coming back a little bit to focus on your work. So, are you facing any challenges or difficulties for your work since you start moving into the Mansion House and started pushing forward these Connect to Prosper projects?
I meant what I said at the beginning, which is honestly, I wouldn't change anything in the last 21 days. It has all gone superbly. Honestly, it's just been great. But as I say, I've also been planning it for a year, and it's very early days in the year. The biggest thing at the moment is very clearly a lack of time. I'm kind of getting up at 6 o'clock and going to bed at midnight. And over there is my desk, which is piled high with business cards and emails I have yet to write. And I'm flying off to Dubai at 6:45 or something tomorrow morning. And I just have not enough time to do follow-up. And there's no point in meeting people if you don't follow up with them, which you've always been very good at.
Oh, thank you for letting us know that. I'm so excited for you too. That's actually that you just following your plan, and it sounds like everything goes very, very smooth. In the UK, there are a large number of Chinese students, besides with many other international students. Largely, they are staying around the Greater London area because we have so many universities, as you mentioned, very good universities. And it seems that they have a lot of issues in terms of living, getting involved closely with the local communities, and to try to understand the culture as well. So me and my colleagues from the UK Shaanxi community were trying to establish an organization to help in terms of the legal aid, not just help them with the legal issues, and also help them to break the cultural barriers to be a new generation of these kind of cross-cultural ambassadors to better to conduct cross-cultural communications. So I'm just wondering, what kind of support or help can we get from you as the Lord Mayor and also from the livery companies of the City of London?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm an immigrant myself, so I have been in those shoes. Obviously, English is one of my languages, so I speak it as a native here. So that's a little bit easier. But honestly, learning and understanding about the United Kingdom is something I too have had to go through, and there are quite a few cultural differences between England and where I grew up. The second thing I'd point out is, why else would they live outside London? I don't see it. It's only the City of London that matters. I mean that in a jocular sense, because I know that there are students in Manchester, Edinburgh, Leeds, etc. So it's there. And I'm sorry if some of them are having some difficulties. What help could you expect from me? Well, I'm not sure it's for me personally, in all honesty, although as you can see, or you wouldn't be here, the door is open, and we are trying to make connections. But it is very easy in London to join associations. And I would point to here within the City of London, we have 40 learned societies, 70 70 institutions of higher education, and 130 research institutes just within 2 miles of the square mile. So there's a lot going on right here in the City of London, much of it open and free. I must say, having been to New York, Paris, lived in Geneva and other cities, London is possibly the most open city in the world. Once you get into some of these networks, you never pay for lunch or dinner because everything is taken care of and subjects coming out of your ears. So we're doing a few things this year, these 100 online lectures of the Knowledge Miles, 25 open events here at Mansion House to help encourage what we can do as a facility. Then there are, of course, things like the ward clubs in the City of London, which are much underappreciated. There are 25 ward clubs where you can meet people who work locally to you. So it's almost like your local community. And then, as you mentioned, the livery companies, and I can see from your Freeman's Pin,
Yes.
and I happen to know you like I are a proud member of the Worshipful Company of World Traders.
Yes.
I happen to belong to 14 livery, but that's another story. For your viewers, the livery companies are the ancient guilds that we used to have, well, we still have, really dating back to roughly the 8th century. And over that sort of 1200, 1300 years since they were formed, we now have 111 of them. And they represent many or most of the professions that we have in the city. So our most recent one was the nurses. So if you were a nurse there, if you're a trader like you, if you're a lawyer, if you're a chemist, if you're an engineer, if you're an actuary, an accountant, believe it or not, there is a livery company for you. Those livery companies are 50,000 strong. And what they do is three things: commerce, community, and charity. And they very much welcome, as I think you know well, welcome people from the Chinese community very, very warmly into them. I'm also hoping to host a youth equality, inclusion, and diversity night to help recruit from the livery, and I could use your help in bringing those Chinese students who feel that these doors aren't open into that event, so they realize that they are welcome to sign up and join and participate fully in the community life of the City of London.
That's very nice of you, and I will definitely pass over this kind invitation to my fellows and friends and many friends in our community. And before your next visit to China, I would like to just to give you a couple of minutes. What sort of messages and wishes would you like to spread out to friends that you're going to meet, but yet not have met them yet? And what are you going to say to them before you're going to meet them?
Well, the first thing is very much the theme. I want to convince them that connections lead to prosperity, and that's the power of networks. So that's probably my intellectual theme. As I said, my selfish themes, I just like to meet interesting and fun people, and that's how we met years ago in Xi'an. So I would like to continue that. I think at the second level, and particularly in the case of China, I want to express the warmth of feeling and the desire to actually trade. It's very clear that there are tensions, geopolitical tensions, etc., at many levels, but that in no way means that we want to shut down on China or vice versa, that China wants to shut down on the UK. We both know that, and we know the depth of feeling there, particularly amongst the business community. Now, we may need to be a little bit careful about, how far we go into areas of, dual-use defense technology, but that's a minor zone. There's tons of things that we can and should do together. And I guess the last thing is just the emphasis that a lot of people look at trade as a one-way thing. Sometimes I do worry about the way in which trade issues are expressed. The only reason we trade is 1 + 1 = 3. We're always trading for mutual benefit. Why should I be doing something that you do better? Why should you be doing something that I do better if we can handle it ourselves in terms of trade? Now, that leads me, though, to, I guess, the earnest point here. The third level thing for me is learning. And I have learned enormous amounts from China and Chinese culture that have altered the way in which my view of the world is formed. And I hope that Chinese people will also learn things from us. And it's that mutual learning that hopefully will lead to more prosperity for everybody on the planet.
Indeed. Thank you very much for all those very insightful and very informative thoughts and ideas and your plan to share with us. And I'm sure that we're all very looking forward to our future meetings and visits and collaborations. And lastly, may I just take this opportunity to present you the official congratulation letter from the mayor of Xi'an City. He kindly asked me to pass over this to you.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh.
And this is the official invitation letter to you to visit Xi'an again to unveil the dragon that you kindly gave us.
Oh, kind. That is most kind.